Hello everyone, I am Ayush Agarwal from ABS Engineering College. Today we'll discuss the concept of database keys in relational database management system. In our previous lecture, we have discussed about the concept of constraints and its type which can be applied to relational database management system. In today's lecture, we'll discuss about the keys concept, what is the need of keys, why we'll use keys in database. We'll discuss the different type of keys in it. Now, if we talk about the need of database, so in a particular relation, it is a property of a relation that we can have different columns and all the name of the columns must be different. So we can easily identify a particular column in a relation, but we need to identify a particular row in a database relation. So we will have to create some mechanism in it. Right? We need a mechanism to identify a particular row in a database relation. For example, in this particular table, we'll have a different type of attributes, and we can see that in our relation, every attribute or every column must have a different name. But if we want to identify a particular row, so how we can do that? So this is the basic concept of database keys. In the case where we need to identify a particular column of, if we need to identify a data of particular student, so how we can do that? So this is the need of database keys, right? Now, if we talk about database key, so in case of its definition, it is an attribute or set of attributes in a particular relation that can uniquely identify each row or tuple in that relation. So if we talk about a key, so it can have a particular column, a single column, or we can create a set of attributes combinedly to create a key which can easily identify a particular row, or if we identify a particular tuple in a relation. So if we talk about database key, it ensures that each tuple in the database table is uniquely identified. So in this way, we can easily identify a particular record in a relation. It also establish and enforce various type of integrity constraints within the database, and we have already discussed in our previous lecture that how we can enforce these type of integrity constraint in the database. And it will also help to establish the relationship between tables. So it will be very useful with the help of a foreign key. When we will talk about the foreign key, we'll discuss it, that how it will be helpful to establish the relationship between different tables, because in a database we can have multiple tables, and if we want to retrieve the information from different tables, so how we can do that, we'll discuss when we'll discuss about the foreign key. Now we have different type of database keys in our relation. You can see that we have super key, we have candidate key, we have primary key, we have composite key, secondary or alternate key, surrogate key, and foreign key. So we'll discuss each one by one its functionality with the help of an example. So firstly, we'll discuss about the concept of super key. So when we talk about super key, it is a set of one or more attributes that allows us to uniquely identify a row in a relation. So if we talk about super key, it is a set of one or more attributes. We can have one attribute enough to identify a particular record, or if one attribute is not enough to identify a particular record in a relation uniquely, so we can combine one or more attributes, right? So it is a set of attributes of a relation schema R with the property that no two tuples T1 and T2 in a relation state should have the same combination of values. What does it mean? It means that every tuple or every row of a relation must be different. No two tuples or no two rows of our table of our relation must be same. So this is known as a uniqueness property. We'll discuss with the help of an example. So let us consider the schema student, where we have different attributes here: Aadhaar number, roll number, first name, last name, address, date of birth, gender, mobile number, and email ID. Now, what is the step to identify a super key in a particular relation? So will identify any particular attribute which must be unique for every student. In case of Aadhaar number, yes, we can take it as a super key. Why? Because Aadhaar number is different, is unique for every student. If we talk about roll numbers, yes, in case of a student, roll number is unique and different for every student. If we talk about first name, can we take first name as a super key? No, because mostly we can have two students which will have a same name, or which we can have more two students which will have a same last name, right? So we cannot take in first name and last name as a super key. Can we take an address individually as in super key? No, because it is possible that two students will have the same address. Can we take date of birth as in super key? No. Again, two students can have a same date of birth. So in this case, how we'll identify a particular super key in a relation? So we'll identify that particular attribute that can have unique or different values for every student schema, right? So here we have discussed that the set of super keys for the above student schema. So super key 1, we can have Aadhaar number, because Aadhaar number is different for every student. Roll number, yes, roll number is different for every student. Mobile number, yes, we can have mobile number as the super key, because it can also be that attribute that can be unique for every student. Email ID, yes, we can have. Now this is a property of a super key. If we have a particular attribute like Aadhaar number, and we have identified that it is a Aadhaar number and it can be used as a super key. Now, if we add any other particular attribute into it, it can also be a super key. For example, in our example SK5, super key 5, we have integrate first name and last name with the Aadhaar number. So it can also be treated as the super key. So basically, in the case of super key, if we identify a particular attribute that can uniquely identify a particular row in the database or in a table, and we can add any other column to that particular attribute, and we can say that that particular set of attributes can also be a super key. So we can have multiple super keys possible in our relation. Now we'll move to a candidate key. What is it? It is a minimal super key that can identify each row or tuple of a given relation uniquely. What does it mean? It means that in our previous example, in case of super key, we can have multiple super keys. For example, if we talk about SK7, super key 7. So we'll have a first name, last name, address, and mobile name. So this can also be treated as the super key. But if we talk about candidate key, so can we take in this as a candidate key? No, we can have a minimal super key that can uniquely enough to identify a particular row in the relation. So in this case, we'll need to identify the minimum number of attributes that are definitely needed to establish a row uniqueness in a given relation. For example, we have taken the same example here also in case of a student. So Aadhaar number, roll number, first name, last name, address, date of birth, gender, mobile name, and mobile number and email ID. So what are the possibilities of a candidate key in this example? So we can take Aadhaar number, because this is enough to uniquely identify a particular row. We can take roll number as the candidate key, because this can also be treated as the as an attribute that can uniquely identify a particular row. In case of a mobile number, also possible. In case of Gmail email ID, that can also be possible. But if we add Aadhaar number with the first name, can we say that this is a candidate key? No, because if we integrate Aadhaar number with the first name, if we remove the first name, we can also identify the particular row uniquely in a relation. So we will have only minimal super key that can identify each row in a given relation, right? So this is the concept of candidate key. And in a relation, we can have multiple candidate keys similar to the super keys. Now we'll move to the concept of primary key. So when we'll talk about the candidate keys, so whichever the candidate key is possible in our relation, so among the candidate keys, one of the candidate key can be chosen as the primary key of a given relation. And if we talk about a practical implementation, only primary key is the key which will be used to implement in a relation or in a table. So it is also a constraint in a table which can uniquely identify each row or record in the database table by enabling one or more the columns in the table as primary key. As we know that if we talk about candidate keys, we can have multiple candidate keys. But if we talk about primary key, so in a relation, in a table, we can at max have only one primary key. In a relation, we cannot have multiple primary keys. We can have multiple super keys, we can have multiple candidate keys, but we can have only at max one primary key. So among these candidate keys, we can choose any one of the primary key for our relation. Now we can have some facts to remember about the primary key, which are given below here. As we know that the value of primary key field will always be unique. It is the property of a primary key that we cannot have duplicate values in that particular column. Now next, the value of the primary key field will never be null. So we cannot insert a null value into that particular column which can be treated as the primary key. So two facts which we have discussed here, that one, the primary key will have always the unique values, and it must not allow any null values into it. And in a relation, it is allowed to have only one primary key, as we have discussed earlier. So we can have multiple super keys, we can have multiple candidate keys, but we can have only at max one primary key for a relation. And this is the only key among which we have discussed till now, is the only primary key that can be practically implemented when we'll use the database. Now this is the example of a primary key. We have already discussed that in a particular relation we identify different super keys, then we'll identify different candidate keys, and among those candidate keys we'll choose one of the candidate key as the primary key. Now how we'll choose in that? So its attributes are never or very rarely changed. No, that is time invariant. So we'll discuss in this example. So here in this example, okay. So here we have Aadhaar number, we have roll number, we have mobile number, and we have email ID. So we have identified these columns or these attributes to be as a candidate key. Now when we talk about the primary key, so we'll choose that column as the primary key, which will change very rarely, right? If we talk about Aadhaar number, can Aadhaar number be changed for a particular student? No. If we talk about roll number, so can we change the roll number of a student? It is possible that a student have some roll number in first year and other roll number in second year. No, roll number is always the permanent. If we talk about mobile number individually can be treated as a candidate key, but can we choose this as a primary key? Maybe no. Why? Because maybe possible in first 2 years a student have a mobile number, and then after third year they'll change that mobile number. And same with the case of email ID. It is also possible that email ID can also be changed, because it is not necessary to have is particular email ID for the whole life, right? So we'll, in the case of primary key, its attributes are never or very rarely changed, that can be chosen as the primary key. And it should consist of either a single attribute or a small number of attributes. So basically in the case of primary key also, we can have only one attribute that can enough possibly to identify a particular row in a table, or we can have a multiple attributes, but we can remember that a small number of attributes can be chosen, right? So in this case we have roll number, name, age, and GPA. So we'll easily identify the primary key as roll number, because roll number can never be changed, and roll number is an attribute that can never be null. And it is also possible that roll number is also not duplicate, right? So all the properties of the primary key are inherent in the roll number property, roll number column, so we can choose roll number as the primary key. Now we have next our composite key. So basically composite key is the primary key consisting of two or more columns. that uniquely identify rows in a relation. So in a particular example, let us take an example. If we unable to identify a particular attribute or single attribute that can uniquely identify rows in a relation, so we can combine two or more columns, two or more attributes that can uniquely identify rows. So in that case, if a primary key contain two or more columns that can uniquely identify rows in a relation, then that particular primary key is also called as composite primary key, right? Now the combination of columns guarantees uniqueness, though individual uniqueness is not guaranteed. Like in this section, in this example, we have taken a relation name as section. We have section name, we have department ID, we have maximum capacity, we have student numbers. So in this case, we combine two attributes, section name and department ID, and combinedly this can be formed as a primary key, and this is called as the composite primary key, because in this example, in this particular example, we'll combine two attributes, right? Now next we have secondary or alternate key. What are those keys? So we'll know what are the candidate keys. So among the candidate keys, one of the candidate key can be chosen as the primary key that can be implemented in a relation in a particular database management system. But what about the other candidate keys? That are known as secondary or alternative keys. So in this case, these are the candidate keys that are left unimplemented or unused after implementing the primary key. So let's move to this example. In this case, we have basically four candidate keys here, right? If we choose an Aadhaar number as the primary key, then other candidate keys are known as alternative or secondary keys, because these are the keys that can that may unimplemented in a relation. Okay, so if a student relation roll number is designated as a primary key, the remaining candidate keys like Aadhaar number, email ID, first name, last name, address are the secondary keys or alternate keys of the student relation. Now we'll talk about foreign key. So when we have discussed about the need of the key and the properties of the key, we'll have a property that it can help to establish a relationship between the table, right? So will be done by the with the help of an with the help of a foreign key. Foreign key is the property that can be used to combine or to establish a relationship between the tables, right? So when the primary key of one relation is included as a non-unique attribute in another relation, then such a database key is called as a foreign key. So basically the concept of foreign key will use in that situation when we need to combine one or more relation. So basically the first relation, the key but primary key of first relation is included as the normal attribute in another relation, that normal attribute in other relation called as a foreign key, and the primary key of the first relation. Now, the primary purpose of the foreign key is to define and create a relationship between the two relations, as we have already discussed. The relation which is being referenced is called as referenced relation, and the corresponding attribute is called a referenced attribute, right? And the relation which refers to the referenced relation is called a referencing relation, and the corresponding attribute is called as referencing attribute. So this is the case of an foreign key, and this we have already discussed when we have talk about the different type of constraints. So we have already discussed this kind of concept, how we can implement it foreign key in our relation or in our database. So if we talk about in this case, here we have two different relation. First we have course and other will have department. Now in this case, department ID of department relation, in this case, this particular attribute is considered as the primary key of this relation. Now this particular attribute is included in another relation named as course as a non unique attribute, right? will include this attribute in this particular relation. Now, this attribute is considered as the foreign key, right? Because it refer the particular relation named as department. So this is called as referenced relation because it is referencing this particular relation named as course. So this will be called as referenced relation, and this will be called as referencing relation, or this will be called as parent relation because the primary key of this relation is included as a foreign key in another relation. So this will be called as parent relation, and this will be called as child relation, right? Now, these are the references from where we have taken the concept for this particular lecture. Thank you. And if you like my video, so please like and share among the students.